Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my 2021 Maybe Mid-Rush Readathon TBR. The Maybe Mid-Rush Readathon was started by Jason at Old Blues Chapters and Verse, Felicia at Little Prairie Library, Steve Donahue and Rick McDonnell is joining this year as well. I will link to their channels down below. They are our hosts, and they are asking us to read one serious book of fiction and one serious book of nonfiction pertaining to the idea of religion. And we have full reign about what we choose to read, so we'll all hopefully be reading a variety of different books throughout the month of May, and anybody, of course, can join. And I have chosen two books regarding Judaism, unsurprisingly. And in fact, I've talked about both of these books a lot in the past couple of months and explicitly stated that I will be reading them for this readathon. But now I will be holding them up again in this official fashion. So I'll start with my fiction pick, which is The Orchard by David Hopen. This is a book that came out last year to some surprising acclaim, I thought, because it garnered attention outside of the Jewish world, even though it has to do with the Orthodox community. And it's a story that I'm particularly excited to be reading now because I think it'll show some diversity to the ultra-Orthodox and the Orthodox community. And it's a nice thing to have, especially given what happened in Israel during Lag BaOmer earlier this week. I'll link to more information about that down below. But with regards to this book, this is a school story, sort of a bildungsroman centering around for high school students in an Orthodox institution. One of them is a newcomer to the group, and he came from a more strict ultra-Orthodox observance into less strict Orthodox school with a lot more money besides around it, and he joins up with a charismatic leader and a couple of other boys, and I think they're going to run into some troubles. And part of the reason I say that is because of the title, which is The Orchard, and it pertains to a Talmudic story. The Talmudic story is about four rabbis who enter into Pardes, which is translated to the orchard. They are seeking mystical spiritualism and a connection to God. And it does not go well for most of them. One of them dies, one of them goes crazy, one becomes a heretic, and then only the fourth one, Rabbi Akiva, goes in peace and leaves in peace. And the story in the Talmud really is supposed to impart two themes, I believe. The first is that the Talmudic rabbis are fanboys of Rabbi Akiva, who was a first century CE rabbi in the Roman era. And the other one is to step cautiously, especially when it comes to mysticism, and not to sort of jump over years of training and in more mundane religious teachings before you go for the big stuff that could lead to disastrous consequences. And so that's what I think these boys more or less are going up against. The general gist I understand is that they're going to start thinking they know better than the rabbis and can sort of reconvene Judaism for their own purposes, and maybe it will lead to some disastrous consequences. I'm assuming this isn't done in some sort of authoritarian manner because this book has too much popularity amongst non-Orthodox people for that, I think. But it hews to the idea that maybe teenager boys don't always know what's right and should perhaps learn a bit more before, you know, jumping off the deep end. At least that's what I'm excited for when it comes to this novel. And anyway, I'll link to more information about the Orchard story in the Talmud down below. For nonfiction, I am reading Time and Difference in Rabbinic Judaism by Sarit Katan Gribbets. This is a book that won the Scholarship Award in last year's National Jewish Book Awards, and I talked about it in a video of interesting titles from those awards. I'll link down below. And I'll also link to the Jewish Book Council's webpage about this book with comments from one of the judges, or maybe a generalized comment about what they saw in this book. Speaking of first century CE Roman history, this is really, I think, what most of this book maps to. Gribbets is going back to the time when the rabbis of that time period are creating new rituals in order mostly to maintain Judaism in an alien environment, because this is the time period right after the Roman diaspora, when most of the Jews were forced out of what is now Israel, and forced away from the temple and a type of religious life which is no longer available to them. Sort of a sense of place and a sense of sacrifice and ritual around the temple is what ancient Judaism was really about. But as most of the Jews went on to live in diaspora, we needed new ways to maintain a community identity, and also to keep our separateness from the Gentiles, which is part of what the rabbis were trying to do in dictating time and difference, and dictating separation between Jews and Gentiles, and also between the holy and the profane, and between the genders as well. Those are the big areas I think that she's going to touch upon. I think in some other earlier commentary I focused a lot on when she might get to the modern day and how this continues to manifest in the modern day. I mean, certainly in more traditional communities there's a lot of still separation between the genders, or sexes, I guess I should say, and there's still a huge amount of thematic relevance to the separation between the holy and the profane when it comes to celebrating holidays, and especially Shabbat. And perhaps less so when it comes to the separation of Jews and Gentiles for most of us in progressive circles. But really, I feel like something I haven't been focusing on but will be exciting to read about in this book is just the historical aspect of what it meant to be Jewish leaders in this very particular time period when Jewish culture had to change or else it would die out. So from a historical context, this should also be pretty fascinating. So yeah, that is it for me. Those are the two books I will be reading for Maybe Midrash. I certainly will not be reading any more than that, I believe, because as I've talked about in other videos, I have a lot already on my plate in terms of page count and in terms of the BookTube Prize quarterfinals, which are ending at the end of this month. So this is it. But I will link to the Goodreads pages for both of these books down below if you'd like more information. So that about covers it for me, but before I sign off for good, I thought I should give a shout out to Hannah from Hannah's Books, because just like I did last year during my Maybe Midrash TBR video, I'm going to mention Philip Roth. Not exactly sure why even, because I'm no fan of Philip Roth. But to a certain degree, I feel like I have him to thank for making a BookTube channel, particularly in the beginning when I thought I'd be much more exclusively focused on Jewish books, and you know that still is a significant subset of what I talk about here. But in large part, I try to focus on modern female Jewish writers in an attempt to say that there's more to Jewish literature than Philip Roth. And frankly, I think Roth would be happy with my arrangement. He never really wanted to be known as a Jewish writer. But anyway, there has been controversy about him recently because of his latest biography written by Blake Bailey, who has had some serious allegations posited against him having to do with being a sexual predator who groomed young women, his students, for sexual contact. And this kind of plays into some of the remarks that some reviewers gave about his book, that he seemed to be tacitly forgiving Roth's misogyny, and kind of seems like that might be the reason why. Anyway, I don't know, I can't talk very well about this subject, I believe. It gets me too emotional. So I am very grateful for Hannah's video, which I'll link down below, because she really just talked about the issue with such erudition, and I very much appreciated it. So yeah, huge shout out again to Jason, Felicia, Steve, and Rick for putting all of this together, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of your videos. That's why I love hashtags, easy to find all of them. I will be back on Friday with my first Friday reads of May, so huzzah! In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.